Welcome everybody to yet another AIDA Africa Research Mentorship session. My name is Dr. Joyce Wangari Ngugi. I am the lead research mentor at AIDA Africa, where we share and grow together. And in the Africana Journal Club, we are a community of peers in research. We can volunteer, any of us, to lead or facilitate a topic in any research topical area, or even in your specific field of study. And we've seen amazing presentations, which are all uploaded on our YouTube channel, AIDA Africa, and you can always refer to that later. We also have a host of different other programs under AIDA Africa. Today, we were having the Shut Up and Write session coinciding with this webinar, and so we decided to have the webinar, and the Shut Up and Write session will be later. Aside from that, we are welcoming students who would like reviews on their work, and that is a program that has been highly successful. We've had 99.9% success rate, and it has been amazing. Keep bringing your work for reviews at any stage, and we are happy to convene a panel of volunteers to look at it. And there's a program that gets you moving, actually, in your own academic journey. So today we are talking about a hot topic. Our young generation is very inclined onto quick wins and quick fixes, and they would like to perhaps just get rich, and what is seen as outwardly rich and successful. And there has been a backseat of the value of education in the minds of our young ones. We've seen them saying, I would get rich at any cost. I don't think staying in school and finishing school is such a priority anymore. And so we now are having educational institutions remaining as very lonely towers of knowledge, and not having people learning for the sake of learning, or those who would like to be in academics and make a contribution, wondering whether there is actually an impact in community. We also have a lot of discrepancies. We still have a lot of gaps in translation of academic research into community impact. And so you find a lot of the academic research that is published sits pretty and gathers dust on the shelves. And so we wonder about, is there really a way where we can translate the knowledge and have the impact it needs to produce in the community on a continuous and sustainable basis? So in what ways then can academic research impact, community development, and in a way that the community also owns knowledge generation? The word research has been controversial in some quarters. It has been seen as very extractive, like data mining. But we want to move away from that to a place where people can talk about knowledge co-creation, and the impact of community engaged research is very important in serving the community in a way that benefits them. So from not just being participants in research, but the community can improve even the process of consent, identifying and resolving ethical pitfalls during research. So the entire design and delivery of the project can be improved by community engagement. And those are some of the things we will be looking at in this very insightful topic of today. And I'd now like to ask all of you who are coming in to please introduce yourselves in the chat. I see already a lot of you saying where you are from, what you do. Thank you for your introductions. That's amazing. Let me read some of them. So, hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Meli from Njoro. Thank you, Isaiah Meli. Eric Okod says you can hear us very well. You're from Kisumu, Kenya. Wonderful. Please keep introducing yourselves. We'd like to know more about your research interests, what you do, why you think this topic would be beneficial for you. So we'll take some more introductions later. But at this point, I'd now like to also introduce our speaker, who is our member, Michael Adiado. He is currently a final year student pursuing international relations and diplomacy at Pioneer International University. His interests are in international relations spanning across geopolitics, foreign policy, and development. Apart from his studies, he is also currently a volunteer in a project called Go Green that aims to incorporate education for sustainability growth in the Kenyan education curriculum. His final year thesis has given him a hindsight on the challenges that researchers face while collecting data from the local communities. So it is very evident that data collection currently does not serve the community purpose, which was intended to inform and improve policies. So we'll be very curious to hear more about that. And now I'd like to hand over the session to Michael. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. And I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to share my research journey. I think this opportunity, most of the research session have attended to, it's mainly about the more advanced researchers, especially who have done masters and PhD. Getting this opportunity as an undergraduate student is really appreciative of what AIDA is trying to do. So I'll just go to the slides and start my presentation. So I'm doing a research on the relationship between the church and the development programs in informal settlement. So this research has given me a insight on what us as researchers are really grappling in the so-called famous ground. So you go to do a research. For example, apparently now I'm being forced to get connections. You have to know somebody in order to get information. And this is something that is so frustrating. And I believe that the reason for this is because most of the researchers are doing research at informal settlement, at rural areas, even at the urban centers, but they don't communicate what this research will benefit the community members. And even after you have done the research, your thesis will just gather dust at the library shelf. So you wonder, why am I even doing this research? Why am I struggling to collect data? So what people have decided to do is that to do copy and paste, or you use secondary data as compared to the primary data. Unless your school has a policy that ensures you prioritize primary data, most of the students currently who I have interacted with have decided to go for secondary data. So it is evident that the Kenya research framework needs an overhaul. You see, it's not only the Kenya research framework, but I think Africa research framework really does need an overhaul. For example, the COVID-19 vaccine is a very good example of what really ails our research issues, our research sector, because apparently, for example, in Kenya, Cambridge had developed some vaccine or had developed the solution to the COVID-19 pandemic, but the policymakers, the government never took this into consideration. So African researchers end up being frustrated and they end up going to abroad, which is much discouraged because the government has invested a lot of money in the education sector, but this money ends up benefiting abroad countries. So researchers have decided to move where their research is appreciated. So the government of Kenya have decided to support research by setting some research funds, some institutions, but you'll realize that this is a government bureaucratic process, because even for you as a researcher, I know majority of us who are in Kenya are not aware of this institution. The institutions that we may be aware are like KIPRA, KEMRI, KALRO, or even ILRI. But even for you to do a research in those organizations, you really need a huge portfolio, you really need a huge connection for you to get such connection to your research. So, for example, we have the KALRO, and I also have an example of Walter Reed in Kisumu. Walter Reed project is located in Seme, Kombewa. They have really done a good job in developing malaria drugs, and also in the fight against HIV/AIDS. So when a research benefits the community, you'll find that the community are receptive to that research. So you'll find the residents in Seme have contributed immensely to the growth of Walter Reed by contributing land to that research. And when a research is being conducted, the community members voluntarily offer themselves as both recipients and people who want to give data to the project, because this is a research project that have improved their lives. So it is upon us as researchers to look into ways on how we can communicate to the community members on how our research aims to improve their situation. It can be not a short-term fix, but it can be a long-term fix. And once you communicate this to community, my short experience have shown that community members will be receptive to you to receive this data. Also, another challenge in the research journey, you'll realize that most of our research institutions or most of our research organizations are underfunded. So recently, the president announced that the structure of the government funding, and this will impact TVET, this will impact universities. So there's no a proper framework on government funding, on government support on research. So most of the time you'll find that a research is only done in regards to a donor interest. You'll find that, for example, in KIBRA, there are a lot of organizations, there are a lot of NGOs that have pitched their tent there. And most of the time, even Kenyans themselves are wondering, is KIBRA really the largest informal statement, or that data has been manipulated so that it can conform to the donors' interest? So you'll find that this will create an apathy towards collection of data in that area, because KIBRA residents will find it very odd that we have been giving data to researchers who have been coming in and out of this area, but our lives have never improved. Recently, there have been a proposal by some MPs from Turkana, for example, that they need to limit the number of NGOs in Turkana, because they still wonder why there are so many NGOs in that area, yet the living standards of people in Turkana continue to deteriorate. So you'll find that we are feeding information to researchers not to improve the livelihoods of Turkana residents, but for donors to continue sustaining the organization, which is so sad because for us future researchers and even us who are here, who are in the research journey, if you're going to such an area, you'll find that there's a lot of resistance from the community because they'll extend the same stereotype to you because they'll also feel like we have been giving information to NGOs, we have been giving information to researchers, but it has never really improved our lives. So what difference are you going to make to us? So it's upon us to look at ways on how we can restructure our research to benefit the community. And I think this is the high time we need to voice out how research is being done in Africa. Because, for example, what it has done is that it has formed a support group for researchers. Especially, I really appreciate this gesture because for me in my research journey, you only have a supervisor who has to attend to almost 200 students. So what that portrays is that even the professors at the university end up being frustrated. And when they end up being frustrated, it means that they either frustrate you more or they don't really look at your work, leading to half-baked research theses that are being put at the university shelf. So it's high time that we look at how we are doing our research in institution and also in our work. So now we need to really ask as researchers, how can we make our research be relevant to the community? How can the community benefit from our research? How can we communicate the benefits of the research to the community we are going to do the research to? Next slide. So one of the recommendations that I had is one of it is what AIDA is doing using the advantage of social media. AIDA doesn't really discriminate on who can join this research program. And I really thank the person who came up with this initiative because most of the research programs really focuses on the PhD and master students. So this initiative doesn't discriminate on who joins. So this is one of the greatest examples of how we can rethink our research. We need to incorporate social media. We need to include all the researchers, no matter the education background, to our research, because you'll find that, for example, for me, I really rely on people who are more senior, like majority of us who are here. So that's where I can get information and review. So this is one of the ways to rethink our research. So a good example of a research institution or think tanks that have really done well, I took an example of KIPRA, the Kenya Institute for Public Policy and Research, and then you have the International Economic Affairs. So what they have really done is that KIPRA always have monthly sessions whereby they invite students from all walks of life to contribute to their research. They also share a journey on how they can improve their research. Also, they offer internship and attachment opportunities. So for students who are moving out of universities, they can incorporate what they have learned in school, the theory, to a practical use. So this is a good initiative of how we can rethink our research. Because when research institution offer these monthly webinars, offer these monthly reports on how research can be improved, students and also researchers are able to know how to fill the gaps in their research and also in their research done. So these are the institutions that have really, I think in my own way, have really contributed to rethinking our research. I've also been in an interview with Tiasa Place. So what Tiasa Place does is that it conducts an interview uh, for people. This doesn't discriminate if you are a university student or not. What they do is that they welcome, they invite people who are passionate about public policy, and public policy involves more about getting input from the community. So what they do is that they invite people and they do an interview, and once they see you're passionate about public policy, they send you to the community where you hail from. So what this does is that when you're going to collect information from this area, you have already identified where you can get the information from, and this information, you can pick a research topic that really will help informing solutions or informing policies that can improve that place. So one of the challenges that we new students are facing is when we are choosing our research topic. You'll find that a student is in Nairobi, but because Turkana believes that Turkana or Kibra has more issues, what he or she does is that he'll research a topic in Turkana, and yet is not familiar with the terrain or the problems that are facing Turkana. So what we end up is that the student is going to collect secondary data on what he believes are the problem in Turkana, and yet is in Nairobi. He has never been in such an area. So what this end up is that we are regurgitating information. We are using information that other researchers have been doing in that area without filling the gap. So what we really need to encourage is that whenever we choose topics or whenever we decide to do a research on a certain area, it is great if we familiarize ourselves with what's happening in that area so that we can develop solutions that are tandem with what that area is facing. Because you'll find that, for example, policies like the housing issues in informal settlement are not tandem with most of what is really facing the residents in this area. For example, the Kenya government in its budget proposal have decided to do a deduction of 3% on employees. So you ask yourself, who advised such policymakers on such a deduction? Because why does the government decide to put a deduction of 3% of all employees? Is housing really a problem? So I feel like most of our research have really not delved into what's really facing the community we are doing the research. We are just doing research for the purpose of either fulfilling the government purposes, fulfilling our academic journey, or fulfilling the donor's interest. And at the end of the day, such policies, when implemented, they no longer serve the community, because even if this housing plan is implemented and there is high cost of living, who will live in those houses? Who will afford those houses? So it is upon us as the researchers to look at research that will really benefit the community. And what Madam Wangari said is that most of this generation research are looking at short-term fixes. Short-term fixes like I need to complete my academic journey so that I can go work or I can get my own work and complete my life journey. But research is more than that. We need to really look at what is facing our community, look at the gap in previous research, and develop solutions that are tandem to address issues in such communities. I think with that, I'm done, and I really thank you for this opportunity. Hello.
Thank you so much, Michael, for that wonderful presentation. And there are some references there, and also your contacts. I think it's important to share in case anybody would like to continue this conversation with you. So we really appreciate that primer that you have given us on the topic. And I see that there's already quite a number of, there's a comment, there's a question, and I saw a raised hand. So Eric, I'll invite you to speak. Let me first read your question. Kindly consider differentiating between research and evaluation. Yeah, I think that is valid. And then you also have said it is recommended to conduct research in the area one is familiar with or unfamiliar area. Don't you think when you are familiar with an area, it may lead to bias? Really interesting. So Eric, you can unmute since we are not so many and just give your comment on the same. No problem.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Yes, I think what I wanted to ask already, I've just noted it down there. Yes. Because I've had the facilitators mentioning that when you are doing a research,
yeah,
in the area you are not familiar with,
yeah,
you may duplicate the research work.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other end, for example, maybe when I'm in Kisumu in a specific area, staying within my location, then I want to do research within where I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Already I have the end in mind that this thing is happening, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm asking. Don't you think it may lead to biasness in terms of now you may end up getting into conclusion which may not be really valid?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really valid question. Who would like to comment before I invite Michael to also give his views? Now, I think that's a really interesting point there. Should you do research that is removed from your own experience and immediate surrounding, or is it better when we say charity begins at home to solve what you know very well? And what factors are in play here? You know, we also talk about philosophical worldview, and we know we have the ethic and the emic, and there are philosophical approaches that include the researcher as a participant in their worldview, while there is another philosophy, for instance, on the quantitative side, where everything has to be seen with the objective truth. So what do you think? Who else would like to weigh in on that? Should you do research closer home, or should you go as far as possible in order to be objective?
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you. I feel as a scientist, it's still okay for you to do research back at home, because you basically tend to understand the terrain. And maybe if the environment is hostile, you do understand how to move about. But then, above all, as you are doing your research, you need to maintain it that you are still a scientist and you have some information you are looking for. So you don't need to be biased. Just look for the information, but being familiar with the area will help you in movement, but not in the results that you'll be looking for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that contribution. Michael, I don't know what you think about that. And also the other question from Eric about monitoring versus evaluation. So maybe you can start with this one on familiarity and biasness.
Okay, in my research journey, it's true that when we do a research on an area that we are more familiar with, I can portray some biasness because even the research topic you're going to choose, it is an issue that you in your own way have perceived to be a problem in that area. So, but now the question begs into, when you go to an area that you're unfamiliar with, how are you going to see, like, is this a problem? Because even for you to develop a problem in an unfamiliar area, it means that you're also biased in that area. Who have told you that that's a problem in that area? So I think when you're talking about biasness, it's more about having a balance of you as a research on what your end objective is. Because if your end objective is to improve policies, I think this can be captured in even the number of respondents you're going to interview. So there are respondents that will not be tandem with what you're trying to do, and there are respondents who will be tandem with what you're trying to do. So these can all be captured in what you're doing via the respondents who are going to feed you in the information too. So I think it's upon us as the researchers to really do a balance, but I really feel very comfortable doing a research on an area that I'm more familiar with. Like what the previous speaker said is that you are more familiar with the terrain, you are more familiar with where you're going to get the information. And we know some areas are so hostile. Like if you go to the informal settlement, there are areas that, for example, if you're doing a research on the water cartel or the electricity cartels in Nairobi area, you can only get this information if you are familiar with that area. But if you're not familiar with this area, it means that you end up being so frustrated because you can't get this information, even your life is at risk. We have seen even investigative journalism, before they do an investigation, they need to familiarize themselves with that area. So it is the same with us researchers. When you are doing a research, it really needs you to have a contact person so that you can navigate through the area. And when you have a contact person, it means that it's more expensive for you as a researcher in doing your research. So for me, I'll lean on doing a research on an area that I'm more familiar with.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for that contribution. And I believe there are many more views. Zuta, were you raising your hand on the same point or a different question? Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, fine. I'm still on the same issue. I also wanted just to contribute on that. I think when we are doing the research, it's not only about the convenience sake, but we are looking at maybe other resources, what resources are available to enable us carry out that research. So it could be at home, but the purpose should not be at maybe convenience sake. It could be that we are doing it at home because the resources are available for us to be able to carry out the research. And it can also be away. And when it's away, we have the resources like finances that will enable to move to that area to conduct. So all these things can be taken into consideration. So my view is that if it's at home, the purpose is not only for convenience, but maybe we are doing it because of availability of resources. And if you are also doing far away, then it could be that the reason is that we don't have the means, like finances that will help us to go there to carry out the research. That is my contribution to. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for raising a very important point on feasibility, viability, looking at what resources you have and finances, and the idea of being around home is the convenience of, you want to finish. You don't want to get stuck because you run out of resources. So I think the diversity of opinions is all valid, and I think we've done very well on that point. So there was the other question on monitoring versus evaluation. Maybe say more about that, Eric. What was your comment or question about it?
No, I really just wanted to understand the difference. I think that's what I really want to understand.
Okay.
Yes.
Differentiating between research and evaluation. Okay, and I also see another M&E question. An organization without a robust M&E organizational structure. How can you sensitize the top management to know or understand the value of M&E and have budgetary allocation for the same without causing what they may call disruption? Really interesting question. Thank you, Obiero. So there are some questions there coming out of the side of M&E. Anybody would like to take that? Or Obiero, what are your thoughts? Yeah, sure. Welcome.
I can contribute my take.
Yeah.
I think in most of the organization, or it's not even in organization alone, or even in our tertiary institution like universities, there are some research topics that when you go to present to your university supervisor, they feel like this research doesn't suit the organization, or doesn't suit this course you are doing. So it is, for me, my advice is, it's upon you as a researcher to pitch your research to the organization, to pitch your research to the university supervisor, to show them why your research is relevant. Because we need to move out of the so-called comfortable zone, of the so-called familiar topics that have been repeated over and over the years. So for me, I think this is more about you as a researcher to be more courageous, to pitch your research to the organization, to show them this is why my research is more relevant to the organization, both show them the short term and the long term. Because it is more evident that organizations usually have budgetary allocation. And when they have budgetary allocation, it means that they have to serve a certain purpose for a time period that budget allocation has been set aside to. So it's evident that you're going to bring a disruption. You are going to bring some uneasiness in that organization. So it is upon you to show the organization that this is why this research is relevant to you, and this is why this research is relevant both in the short term and the long term effect. Because, for example, you're a journalist and you pick up an investigative journalism piece. What the TV channel will do is that will this investigative journalism bring us more viewers. So it is upon you to pitch that topic you're going to do, and show the organization both the short term and the long term effects of this research. So obviously it will bring disruption, but you have to be courage to show that this disruption is worth it. We really need to move out of the comfort zone and come up with new research topics that are going to serve the next generation, because you'll find that the research that people are currently doing are suited only for the previous and the current generation. But we need to have a long-term research issues that serve both the past and the future. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think you've said it very well. The idea of leveraging a way to influence an organization. So I hope, Obiero, you're well answered. I would say in addition, we can do direct influence, or we can use other ways indirectly to influence an organizational structure. So for instance, depending on how the organization perceives you or which kind of role you have, you may not directly be able to influence the organization or the top management, but you can use other avenues or channels that creates a higher impact. For instance, intermediaries, mediators, or even just other top management in a different organization, in order that the messaging that they are getting is positive, because disruption isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, we are living in times when there's a lot of technological advancement happening very fast. So organizations must come up to speed, or else they become irrelevant. So I hope that answers you. And there's a comment here from Stephen Olubiliera. For academic purposes, the time factor supersedes everything. The researcher's interest and the hurdles that one has to jump over, including the research ethical approvals. So one needs to weigh his or her options. You either graduate first or you pursue your interest. So the idea of you need to graduate first and then pursue your interests after that. So I think that's a really good point there on efficiency, how best to use resources and time for maximum output, especially when you're doing academic research. You don't want to pick a topic that will stay for many years, you know, and that you will not finish. So thank you for that comment, Stephen. I'm just checking to see if there are any other raised hands. Who else would want to weigh in on this topic? What will you apply? I think that's a good way to wrap up. What learning from today will you apply? Anything you wish to do differently in future? Or what you will continue to do? Who would like to say something?
Maybe I'm more curious with what's in the when we talk about one to weigh his or her options, graduate first and pursue your interest after. So I think this is what we are doing currently, because you have to weigh your options. You have to look at the reward. What is the reward? But I think we have an issue here, because when you do in what we, I'm not necessarily saying this is a quick fix, but I think when we have this issue of the priority is to graduate first and then then pursue our interest later, it conflicts our long-term vision, because you can do your research, for example, an issue that, for example, you presented 2 topics. When you look at these 2 topics, one you think is more passionate about what you're going to pursue for the long term. The other one is you need to graduate very fast so that you can look at your long-term future. And you find that most of the organizations tend to look at a topic that serves the short-term interest. So what it leaves you with as a research, I don't know, but this is what I've always feel like when I'm presenting topics to lecturers, I can graduate very fast, that's okay, but I feel like I've not really fulfilled my academic interest on my research journey, because I feel like there's a gap that I really didn't fulfill. So you'll find that I'm doing a topic that I think is more tandem with my long-term future, but this topic can be rejected for a topic that the supervisor feels that I can get more information, it can be completed very early, so that even the researcher even the supervisor can get more time, to complete the supervisory role. But at the end of the day, I feel like us as researchers, as students, we really need to come out of that comfort zone and look at the long-term effect of our research, because at the end of the day, I felt like even organizations currently, what they do is that they ask you, what was your undergraduate project, and why did you think it was relevant? So what you end up with is that you can't even remember what your topic was, because you are not passionate about your topic. You did that topic for the purpose of graduating. So I don't really know if that has been an issue with people in here, but I think for me it has been an issue. I tend to choose topics that I know are within my career vision. For example, I'm doing a research on church and informal settlement because I believe in the future, I'll establish an NGO, or if I'll not establish an NGO, I'll work in the development field. And in the development field, I envision to work in the informal settlement. So what happens if you choose a topic? Yes, you've graduated, but over the 10 years or over the 5 years, you get a job, but you find that what you did at your undergraduate or what you did at the master's didn't really contribute to what you are doing to fulfill your career vision. So I don't know if this is an issue that's facing us or it's only me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for elaborating on that complexity, actually. Should academic research only be outcome-oriented, or should we focus on the long-term impact and the process of learning, or should we only be focused on graduation day and getting in all the graduation requirements? So I really like how you have expanded on that complexity, and that is where a lot of students feel constricted in that way because of the being boxed into all these academic purposes, and feeling like there has to be an urgent, process that takes away, just creative thinking, curiosity, and just knowledge for knowledge's sake, And then the other point that you've really brought out is the conceptual versus applicable studies. If your study has more of a conceptual basis that changes a perception of a problem versus another study which has a high applicability and gets a lot of solutions on the ground. And in Kenya, we talk about things qua ground, things on the ground. That's a phrase that we use a lot to show applicability. So that's a really, really good point. Thank you. Now I see another comment here. And before that, I've just remembered we didn't quite answer the question on the difference between research and evaluation. And I think it's important. So I would say research can be to answer any kind of question, to satisfy curiosity, just for knowledge's sake. So research focuses on gaining conclusions or facts, that can be generalized, especially when we talk about quantitative research, or some theoretical outcomes, that are controlled by researchers. However, in evaluation, it's slightly different. Evaluation focuses on specific and applied knowledge within the set boundaries. And so most of the time you'll find also evaluation or program evaluation is controlled by those who are funding it. So we are answering a specific program question with a focus on applied knowledge. And it's good to look at those differences, because when we begin to talk about how to improve our impact or applicability in different contexts, we need to know what research is and the difference between research and evaluation. So basically, research just is to generate knowledge, contribute to growth of a theory, but evaluation is to provide information to those who have a stake. For instance, performance improvement, for example, So thank you for that contribution and question, Eric. Then there's a comment by Zadok Mainge. Dissemination of study results is crucial for impact to be seen. As one plans to conduct research, there is need for plan for dissemination to different stakeholders involved. Many a times, people overlook this step, and some think dissemination is only through like the more standard publications. Sometimes we usually disseminate in conferences among fellow researchers while the target stakeholders are not present. So we need to move away from just, academic conferences also, and we can address that concern by doing dissemination among different, populations, so that you can see a change in the status of the situation. So research topics need to be guided to solving current problems existing in the society. Doing research for the purpose of graduating is past by time. However, there are the guys who are advancing studies for purpose of promotion at work and do not bother. They only want to graduate and get the promotion. Yeah, so that is actually a tension, and I'm glad that you can relate, Zadok, you have actually observed that. There's a major tension. Are we just in school to finish and go home? And you'll find seems to be that undercurrent in our academic culture. And we can say that there are many factors fueling that, supervisors feeling overwhelmed and having so many students, and therefore not having time to actually just be with the research journey, the research process. And then we also have to have a look at long-term impact of these studies. So, and who gets to be the agent? I like your focus on dissemination. It is us when we disseminate the knowledge, and we need to do it more proactively. I don't think we also do enough of citing of our fellow African researchers. You'll find a lot of us, especially those in the social sciences, who have to deal with, theories of human interaction and things like that. You'll find yourself, you're still quoting a lot of the others from the global north. So that is something that Aurelia has always challenged us to do. Try to look for local authors, even if they're a bit more hidden. Maybe you'll find in university repositories, people who have done your study before. Try to look for them, even if they're not so readily available when you go online. Then that way we are able to build ourselves. So thank you so much, everyone, for those wonderful contributions. Does anybody have any closing comment on what I had said earlier? How will you apply today's webinar in your actual process? So we'd like to take some sharing now on what just one or two people, what are you taking away from today's session?
Study and my class now appeared.
Someone needs to mute. All right. So someone tell us, what do you think is something new you have captured? Anything that you would like to do differently from now on? I think we are all still reflecting on all these wonderful things we have talked about. So as usual, we will share the slides and the recording for this Zoom meeting. If nobody has any other closing comments, then I'd like to hand over back to Michael for any closing remarks. Welcome, Michael.
Before maybe we finish.
Yes, sure. Regina, welcome.
Yeah, though I joined late.
Yeah.
I've captured something about, I've been able to capture that most of the time as researchers, especially if we want to advance our academics, we are targeting graduating. We don't want, we are not more focused on like dissemination of information to the people on the ground. Like if you are doing a research that is affecting a community, and maybe the input or whatever you captured, whatever you gathered, that could be of essence to them. Like maybe you are doing a research on dry areas or a research on a certain disease, and you've gotten the results. It's good to have a way of getting back to that community and being able to give back. It's like giving back to the society those results or those research outputs that may be of benefit to them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a really good point. We all have to ponder about our role in that and the systems that perpetuate that, and so that we deconstruct that and transform it. And we don't have to just do it for the purpose of finishing. We need to actually make a difference, move the needle on the ground, you know? Yeah, thanks for that. Apologies from the moderator who was to take the session, Dr. Lisa. She had a bereavement and she sends you her greetings. And we look forward to more of such webinars. There will be others coming up very soon. We always send out word on our social media, so you can check out our next programming. So Michael, do you have any closing remarks?
Yes, mine is to thank you, the host. You have really done a good job moderating this session. So thank you for your time. And I've also learned something from you on how to moderate a session. So I think that's also a learning thing for me. So in future, I can pick some points on how to moderate a session. And also, I thank you all the participants for making time to attend this session. So I really thank you all of you who have made time to attend this session, whereby we collaborate and share ideas on how to improve our research, not only also our research, but I think this is more about how to improve our life going forward, because as researchers, we need to make an impact to the society, and having a webinar like this, organized by AIDA Africa, is one of the best ways of how as the young researchers we can learn from more experienced researchers who are in here. Just to close it is that I think we as researchers need to have a unique thing when you're doing a research. We, like people always portray that we don't look at the quantity, but we look at the quality. So we really need to do research that aims to improve the livelihood of the community, that aims to improve the livelihoods of even us as researchers, because I think when you can't sit down there 1 to 2 months or even a year doing a research that you're not passionate about. So this is a rallying call for all of us to do a research that we feel that can fulfill our research journey, that can also bring positive action towards ailing our community, towards ailing our continent. It's time we reshape how research is being done. I think in the next coming years, if we don't rethink our research, people will be more about doing research to complete school. And that's why even governments currently are shifting research from universities to TVET, because it's more about where they can get practical solutions, because our university have turned out to be more about theories instead of solutions. So to avoid this, as those who are in universities and those even in TVET, we need to come up with research that gives solutions, that give practical solutions to what affecting our society, towards affecting our continent. So with that, I really thank you all for making time to attend this webinar. I really thank Ada for giving me this opportunity to share my research journey, and also they have really made an impact on my research journey, because I've gotten some contacts who have gotten who have got an assistance on how to continue my research journey. So thank you, Ada, and I hope that more young researchers, especially the first year, the second year, the third year, the fourth years who are on an undergraduate, who are still in undergraduate studies, will get an opportunity like this to get into the WhatsApp group so that they can share their research journey. Because what Ada have done is that they have not discriminated really, because you go into a research place, you find that majority of the researchers are more experienced, so you feel out of place. But within Ada Africa Journal group, even in the WhatsApp group, you can comment on something, then more experienced researchers will tell you how to go about it. So I think by doing that, you're contributing to today's webinars on how to rethink our research. Research needs not to be only be done by so-called experienced people, but also bring up or nurture more young researchers so that they can also contribute to the research done. So thank you, Ada, and thank you for all of you for making time to attend this webinar. Thank you.
All right, you're very welcome. And thank you also for the wonderful facilitation. So on that note, I'd like to wish everybody a wonderful day, and I'll see you again. Goodbye. Please fill the feedback form.
Goodbye.
And somebody is asking whether we'll get certified. We do not provide certificates for our webinars. However, we do have certification programs for different other trainings in our Research Mentorship Collective. We do have wonderful trainings coming up, and at a small fee, you can access certification for those ones. You also get a certificate or recognition if you present, like in the case of Michael today. He's done an amazing job getting prepared and facilitating today's session. So we do recognize our presenters, facilitators in that way. Thank you, everyone, and for the wonderful comments in the chat as well. Yes, we will be asking you for any other opportunity to present our webinar. So feel free to tell us your proposed topic and date, and then we'll just set up a Zoom. This is how we grow our community of peers in research. So we will share the recording in our group. If you're not yet a member of Africana Journal Club, please visit our website, Ada Africa Limited, and you'll be able to be guided on how to join. So I think on that note, we can close this meeting. All right, have a good one. Bye.
Thank you, bye.
Okay.